Hey everybody, my name's Derek, founder and CEO of Wenwyn, helping you navigate the intersection of leadership and culture. And in this episode, I'm going to help you figure out how to have insight into cities. I'm going to describe what we call our Sagacities process. Before I get into this video, let me just encourage you, for reasons of algorithms, to hit the like or the subscribe button. We would love to be able to get more free content out to you. All right, let's dive right in. How do I find insights into cities around me, or even into the city in which I live as a leader, trying to navigate the intersection of faith and culture? Well, we have something called the Sagacities Process. Now, Sagacities, that sounds like a made-up word, doesn't it? Well, it kind of is and it kind of isn't. The term sagacious is a real word, and it means to have keen judgment, to have discernment into the world around you. Cities means, well, cities. And so sagacities means to have keen judgment or a shrewd discernment into the cities that you live, work, and play in, or maybe the cities that you're trying to open a new market in or trying to get a new movement started in. Well, how do I find insight in those cities? Is it pure observation? Is it guesswork? Did someone read 2 books and decided to put some sort of a presentation together? And the answer is no. There's an actual process to this. And so we look at several what we call slices of a pie. These are several areas that I think really you should be able to look in to gain insight. And in particular, what you're looking for is how all of these relate together. So we look, for instance, at cities within each of these slices individually, and then we look and see how they all match up together. So I'm going to walk you through each of the aspects of the city that we look at. We look, for instance, at the most obvious, and that's history. In any given city, you should probably be aware of its history. Some cities begin, like Richmond, as a stopover going to Atlanta. It was an economic stop. Other cities begin because entire families moved there and wanted to live there. They were building a community. Some cities live and thrive because a founder wanted to go and make a name for themselves. They wanted to go and dominate something, or an industry like the gold rush dominated something. It's important to know the history of your city. Now, whenever we look at a city history, what we look for are anomalies. We look for what makes that city special. Why here? Why these families? What is the personality of the city's founders? What made them unique and special? Why did they suddenly decide to go start a city and no one else around them was starting a city? So we're looking for all those anomalies in histories. You're going to hear that word a lot over the course of this video. Anomaly. Anomaly means just something exceptional or unusual in the context of that slice. In this case, this first case, history. Another obvious area that we look at is geography. Some cities are built on swamps. Some cities are built in the south. Some cities are built on frozen tundras. Some cities are built in the kind of the edges of islands or in the middle of an island. And so geography plays a significant role in the shaping of culture. Island peoples are different than mountain peoples, are different than river peoples. And so we look at the geography of city. You know, in some cases, does an actual train track or a river divide the city? You know, how is it laid out physically? There again, we're looking for some anomalies. We're looking for a big picture. We kind of want to situate the city. And we want to ask the question, how is the city different? Why this swamp and not a swamp line up the coast somewhere? Why on a swamp at all? That seems like a lot of work and effort. You know, in Chicago, at one point, they actually reversed the current of the river there. And so why did they do that? Why did that play a factor in how the city was getting sick or not sick? So we take a look at geography. We also look at demography. So the age of a city. Now, or the median age of a city's residents. Now, you might think, well, yeah, babies are born in every city, and there are old people in every city, and then it's everything in between. But that's not completely true. Some cities have a predominant amount of young people. Some cities have a predominant amount of older people, dying cities, for instance, right? The people who can afford to retire and live there, but they're not necessarily starting up new industries. Years ago, I had a friend who had sent a couple into a city in Eastern Germany, and the wall had just fallen. This is about 5 years after the fact. This family went in and they were determined to start a city church in this city in East Germany. And after about 5 years, this couple left in total frustration, having not started anything. Well, my friend was kind of curious. So he said, that's unusual that they would leave so abruptly and they couldn't get anything started. So he went to the city, and he went right to the Rathaus, which in German is the city center. And he just basically looked at demographics, and he saw, oh yeah, that's because there's older folks in the city and there's kids in the city. So grandparents and grandchildren. And there's a significant kind of swath in between that was largely absent. Why? Well, the answer is, as a part of the history and the context, they all left to go find work in the West. And so they didn't want to bring their kids with them. They wanted to keep their residency and their ties into their hometown, but they needed to go find jobs. And so a big part of the working class kind of exited the city. And so this idea of we're going to reach entire families that are living there, well, no, families were very much divided, and you have grandparents and grandkids that were living there. So had they targeted something for grandparents and grandkids, with parents occasionally coming around or coming back around, or worked with the city to create work incentives to keep those workers in the city, well, then they could have had real influence. So demography does make a difference. And there is something around the world called the graying of the planet. I used to work with SIR Research and the Boomer Project, an incredible company, does great research and works with Fortune 15, Fortune 500 companies. And they worked quite a bit in this space of what do we do with an aging population? What do we do with a pyramid demography that looks more like a skyscraper than a pyramid? So what do we do about those things? Well, those things are significant in how we have insight into our cities. So we take a look at the demography, see if there's any anomalies there. Then we look at city branding. What does the city aspire to be? Contrary to popular belief, city branding is a pretty complicated process. There's a lot of questions that go out. They're asking questions like, what do they value? Again, it's a values proposition. What is it that people here want to be known for? Who do they want to attract? Where do they see the future of this town going? Years ago, I was working with a leader who was going into a town, really a major city in Europe. And I asked him to present to me where he thought he could have influence. And he came and presented, and he said, I really wasn't sure. Well, I had pulled up the city site. And on the city front site was listed, in pretty bold letters, we want to be the technological future of Europe. We want to be a business cluster. And they were actually on that site, on their city site, listing the business cluster tech companies that they were fostering and that had been started in that city. So it's important to know what the city aspires to be, or at least what the city has branded itself to be. Now, that doesn't mean that their branding is accurate. In fact, sometimes it's inaccurate because they're branding for the wrong thing. But it does mean you have to pay attention because aspiration is important. We look at anthropology. Now, anthropology sounds like what it is. It sounds like the study of people in relationship to each other. And so anthropology, we look at comparative fit. How does this town, how does this city compare to the city next to it? How does it compare to the surrounding community? How does it compare to the region? Again, every place is equal, but not every place is equally influential. And I know I've maybe not said it exactly like that, but no two cities are the same. Every city is equal, has equal worth. There are great people who live there, but not every place is equally influential. So we look at fit. Then we look at sociology. In sociology, here we look at the rate of change. What's the city's relationship with change? We look at the innovation bell curve. Now, I know that that's done for product adoption, but that can also be used for psychographics, for innovators and early adopters. And so what is the city's rate of change? What's their comfort level with change? How much do they have to see something proven before they go out and adopt it? We don't do that sort of thing here. Or actually, we went out and we found the world's leading thinker in this space and invited them to come in here. We wanted our city to be like an experiment, like a test project. How do cities get to that place? So knowing your sociology is important for knowing how you're going to communicate to the city, because you're going to communicate through values, and you're going to couch that communication to bring your initiative or your leadership forward. Speaking of communication, that's really the final slice. We look at what communication style your city is predominantly steeped in. If it's indirect, as a predominant style, or as it's never exclusive, but as a predominant way of communicating what you mean, then that's important, because it's not just about what you say, but it's about what you don't say that matters. So there are certain cities in the U.S. that thrive on indirect communication. Same thing's true in Europe. Same thing's true in the East. Some of those Eastern countries in places. Same thing is true in the global South, when you think about South America and so on. So knowing if they're an indirect communication culture is important. Are they a shame culture or a non-shame culture? Likewise, it's helpful to know if they're a direct communication culture. There's some places you go to and you're like, I'm just going to share my story. And they're like, get to the point. Like, thank you for your story. We don't really care. We'll listen to your story afterward. Tell us what you're about first. Very, very direct. That doesn't mean they're unfriendly. It just means they're matter of fact. And there are places in the world, there are cities in the world where it is really insightful and helpful for you to know that going in. They don't feel like you're wasting their time, and they'll give you the benefit of the doubt for knowing how to speak their language and their communication style. So when you factor in all of these slices, history, geography, demography, city branding, anthropology, sociology, and communication style, you can start to put them together. And when you do that, you can start to become sagacious in how you begin to view the values of that city. When you can get to those values, you can begin to communicate to that city appropriately. And remember, no two cities are the same. And so it's important to be able to celebrate each city as unique. That's the motive here. We want to celebrate every single city as being unique. A good leader knows how to speak to people where they are, not where they want them to be, not where the leader is, but where the people are, for the purposes of speaking in their language, but also helping them not be stuck wherever they're at. So the leader can lead them either in their initiative or their movement or their project or their nonprofit or their business or their church or whatever it is. But it's so important to meet people where they are. Hey, if you're interested in this sort of thing, I want to encourage you to check out our website, wenwyn.com. You can get there a free PDF resource called 4 Mental Frameworks that change your view so that you can make a difference. And that's just our small way of saying thank you for signing up to our email list and our website. And we'd love to have you check out what we're doing. And if we can help you, if we can serve you in a way that helps you to have an impact in the world, even better. Be on the lookout for upcoming courses. We've got a great online course coming up about social justice that I think you'll be interested in. We have a great course on vision and strategy that I think you'll be interested in as well. All right. We'll talk to you in the next episode. Thanks so much for watching the video.